Greetings, my fellow human beings. My name is Miss Sarah, and today I would like to go over the topic of soil. The as above, so below, as within, was without. Not just what it means for growing plants here on the planet and what it means for the planet, but it also has a lot to do with us as humans and our development and our growth and our understanding of life itself. So, without further ado, let's get into what the term soil means, the specific term that we'll be discussing today. And it's from the 14th century, and its noun means firm land, earth, the upper layer of earth that may be dug or plowed in which plants grow. The superficial, unconsolidated, and usually weathered part of the mantle of the planet, and especially of earth. Country, land, native soil. The agricultural life or calling. A medium in which something takes hold and develops. From the Anglo-French root soiler, soil also can mean in Old French a wallow of a wild boar, abyss. The Latin word is solium, chair, bathtub, akin to Latin sedivi, to sit, a noun in Middle English from Anglo-French, soil, a piece of land, and soul, otherwise known as sandal or a foundational timber. So when we're operating from that definition, that vast array that we just got our brains filled with, we get a perspective that's a little bit larger than the one we're used to. Instead of thinking of it as something we just walk on or watch the grass grow or the flowers bloom, it holds more than that. And to give you a perspective on what's going on with our soil right now, today we would have to eat 8 oranges in order to get the same amount of vitamin A that our grandparents had to eat just by consuming 1. So the soil is being depleted for multiple different reasons. The obvious being that we don't replenish the soil with what it needs. The second is using chemicals and artificial fertilizers, things like that, that do not regenerate what the soil needs to not only grow a healthy plant, but to nourish our bodies. And this means that we as a collective human and even, other species, animals, we are somewhat de-evolving, if you will. We're not getting the nutrients that our body needs. We're not developing in a healthy way. We're not functioning at the highest potential that we could be. And I'm passionate about starting at the soil level to create something that is very holistically, I know a lot of people don't like that word, but it's right for the earth, it's right for us, And it's right for our evolution that we start to understand what we consume, we become. And if we want to grow and evolve as a species, starting at the soil level, in my humble opinion, is the first step. So now that we know kind of a little bit about the soil depletion, we're talking not just vitamin A here, we're talking iron, magnesium, vitamin B12. These are very important nutrients. And when our bodies don't get them, we become diseased. We become more susceptible to disease. And, you know, it'd be a lovely thought if we could just go out and take a multivitamin and live like we live in the future, where we just eat by popping a pill. Unfortunately, that's not the way it is. So how to mend this, how to amend the soil. First off, it's not impossible. I know I'll probably give you a lot of information that's kind of doom and gloom. It's not impossible. It's a movement that is growing. So don't lose hope. Don't give up. Don't despair. I am a firm believer that when there's a problem, there's always a solution. Always a solution, without a doubt. So if we look to that and face that, I think we can find a way out of this. With a lot of help and support from like-minded people. I'm not what you call a hoardy. I did not go to school for this. This is my personal passion, and this is my time consumed, if you will, outside of working in a greenhouse and outside of being a member of society. So through my research, there are, and I can't go through all of this today because we'd be here forever. So amending your soil when you're a gardener, when you grow your own, comes down to basically compost. And when I say compost, people think to themselves, well, I'll just throw my food, my leftovers in a bucket, and they'll go in my garden and it'll all be okay in the spring. Compost takes 2 years to break down enough to not hurt the plants that you are putting in that soil. Compost takes insects, exposure to sunlight, to rain, and a lot of times you have to get those barrels to keep the critters out of your yard and your home. So opening those barrels is very important to get the sunlight in, to let the rain in. And yes, it's going to take 2 years to get you a safe and secure compost. And then we come to the plants. If you just type in to Google what plants put nutrients back into the soil, you'll come up with a whole plethora of different responses. Some of my favorites that have successfully grown for me in the past, at least in my climate. And again, do your research. Whatever zone you're in, you need to understand what grows there and what doesn't. If you are just planting these for the growing season, it doesn't matter. But if you want it long term, you need to make sure that your zones match up. And again, that's a simple Google. Clover works really well. Sunflowers, anything legume, beans, clover and legumes, they create a little ground cover, just, nothing that you would have to weed whack or mow down. It's nice to plant in the pathways of your garden. It keeps the weeds down a little bit, not a lot, but it does help. And the maintenance on them is very little. I mean, yes, if you're going through a dry spell, you're going to need to water, but super easy, really reliable crops that I found anyway, those three. Another thing when it comes to soil health is rotating your crops. So just to hit on the tip of that iceberg, that'll have to be for another video, but say you plant your peppers on the south side of your garden and your tomatoes on the north side of your garden. You do not want to A, plant them in the same exact spot the next year, or B, switch them over. So you don't want to put your tomatoes where your peppers were, and you don't want to put your peppers where your tomatoes were, because they are very acid-loving plants. So you're going to have to make sure that you do document what went where in your garden. You're going to have to keep a garden journal in order to keep those crops rotating on a regular basis. Another thing I found works really well is a biofungicide mycorrhizae mix. Most responsible greenhouses that are knowledgeable will carry this soil mix, and it is not cheap. But the good news is you don't need a ton of it. It sounds really chemically and nasty. It's not. It's something that already exists in the soil that simply awakens the nutrients that already exist in the soil. Another fertilizer I like to use, and I'm not getting paid for this, so I'm not here for the money. I'm here to help you, the planet, and myself grow. So Dr. Earth is something I swear by. I've had a lot of experience with it, growing in different types of plants, fruits, veggies, fruit trees. It's a simple, easy process. You just put it right in the soil, and then you water in with it's called a tea. You make a tea with it, and the instructions are right on the back of the bag. And if you're just starting out, don't panic. Don't feel overwhelmed. If you leave a comment below, I can maybe make a video later on walking you through this process. Right now, we're just talking about amending the soil and making sure that you have the right nutrients in your soil so that things can grow the way they need to in a healthy manner, so you don't have to use a ton of chemicals and pesticides and herbicides and fungicides. Which brings me to my next point of supporting local growers, supporting your farmers market, anything organic. And it's not just better for you. The organic grower understands and knows that everything starts at a soil level. And when you have the basis of the soil taken care of, that means the nutrients that are in that soil are way better, and they're going to be higher than they would in, say, a larger company that grows a massive amount of crops, because they don't have the capabilities for that at the moment. So probably sounds like I'm coming off as some sort of Nazi or something. I'm not. I do not use pesticides, herbicides, fungicides on my gardens or on my lawn or anywhere in my yard. I have pets, chickens, that good stuff. So I stay away from all that for their safety and their well-being, as well as my own. However, I I don't eat 100% organic. It's it can become tricky. So I'm not a saint. I'm not a saint. I'm the furthest thing from it. But if you just make that conscious decision that one or two things you buy at the grocery store are going to be organic, and price things out. There's reasonable things. Even at Wally World, they have organics now. So you are no longer trapped in that box, and you don't have to stay there. You can venture out and try a few different things that are organic. You don't have to make the entire grocery list completely organic. That's not what I'm advocating here. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying if you've never bought an organic and you never intend to buy organic that you are some wrong being. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. We all do what we can on the level that we can. Which leads me to another point of expanding on a few of the other definitions other than just the earth part of it. Carl Sagan, I've read a couple of books of his. I'm sure you've heard the quote when he says that we are made up of star stuff. And it's not just us that's made up of star stuff. We also walk on a planet that's made of star stuff. And we coexist with it, or we don't. And when you take that into consideration, that our soil is being depleted, our earth is being depleted, along with water and air and all that other good stuff, but today we're focusing on soil. So what does that mean for us? I'm not going to answer that for you. I'm going to let you answer that for yourself. I'm going to jump out on a limb real quick. I have a book. I have a couple books. I have a lot of books. That is called The Encyclopedia of Angels, Spirit Guides, and Ascended Masters. Thank you, Cor. So, Azrael, he's the angel of death. And according to this book, he is the only angel that took enough soil to heaven for God to create man. Now, do I believe that's true? I don't know. I don't. Nonetheless, we're still star stuff. And now I'm going to read you from the Gnostic Bible, an excerpt that I found. Yeshua said, "Look, the sower went out, took a handful of seeds, and scattered them. Some fell on the road, and the birds came and pecked them up. Others fell on rock, and they did not take root in the soil, and did not produce heads of grain. Others fell on thorns, and they choked the seeds, and worms devoured them. And others fell on good soil, and it brought forth good crop, yielding 60 per measure and 120 per measure." So if we are the soil, and the soil is us, and we are interdependent on each other, what kind of soil would you like to be?